Is the DJI NEO 2 a step up from the original DJI NEO? And is it worth upgrading from the original or spending a bit of extra cash if you're in the market for a selfie drone? In this video, I'm going to run through the main differences versus the original, the control modes, the camera quality, flight time tests, and a few tips and tricks along the way. Watch to the end for the one feature that absolutely blew my tiny little mind. Let's get on with it. I've been flying drones and talking about it on YouTube for nearly 3 years now, and I've made almost 100 barely acceptable pieces of content about it. Many of those are about the DJI NEO, which, despite its limitations, quickly became one of my favourite drones to fly. The camera on it was rubbish, it didn't have obstacle avoidance on it, and the wind resistance was terrible. But it was still tons of fun. Now, DJI kindly sent me the NEO 2. And yes, some money did change hands. I had to send them about £350. For that, I got the drone, 3 batteries, the charging hub, and the digital transceiver. I already have 3 RC-N3 controllers and 2 RC2s, but I was lucky enough to grab the digital transceiver on its own before it ran out, rather than having to buy a Flymore combo and yet another RC-N3. I hope the polar bears appreciate that, because it didn't actually save me a huge amount of money in the end. Anyway, I couldn't wait to get out and start exploring the improvements they've made. Let's start off by having a look at the main differences between the OG NEO and the brand new DJI NEO 2. Firstly, the size. Whilst the original NEO was just about able to fit into your pocket, the NEO 2 is slightly larger. Whilst this may be a slight inconvenience, it does mean that the NEO 2, being a bit more powerful, has slightly better wind resistance. The NEO 2 is 151 grams versus the NEO's 135. So both of them are well below the 250 gram level, where more drone restrictions apply in most countries. In the UK at least, you will still need to register with the CAA for an operator ID, and from January 2026, because both of these are more than 100 grams and have cameras on them, you will need to get a flyer ID from the CAA as well. It's free to get, and you just need to do a small course online and then answer 30 out of 40 multiple choice questions correctly to get your flyer ID. The NEO 2 has a 2-axis gimbal, whereas the original just had one. Both use electronic image stabilization as well, but because the NEO 2 has a 2-axis gimbal, this means that it doesn't have to crop in as much to get a steady picture, which in turn means that it ends up with a better image. I was initially disappointed that the DJI NEO 2 didn't have an upgraded sensor. I was expecting a 1/1.3 upgrade, a bit like the DJI Mini 4 Pro, but DJI stuck with the 1/2-inch 12 megapixel sensor on the camera. But the aperture is now f2.2, which is wider than the NEO's f2.8, and so it lets in more light and detail and makes it more reliable in low light conditions. Whilst the picture is still only 8-bit colour and there is no HLG or D-Log-M, the upgraded processor on the NEO 2 helps reduce the amount of noise and artifacts previously seen on the original DJI NEO. Overall, yeah, it's a solid, if not very exciting improvement, and perfectly acceptable for everyday flying. Oh, and yeah, it does do vertical video at 2.7, but being a grumpy Gen Xer and having done it already, if vertical is your favourite format, then do feel free to, film in vertical. As far as the onboard storage is concerned, the NEO 2 has 49 gigabytes, which is over double the 22 on the original NEO.
Mathematical genius.
I used 6 batteries in an afternoon with this and used up only about half of the storage. So that upgrade makes things a lot more flexible, as there still isn't anywhere to put an SD card. As with the NEO, to offload your footage, you can either do that to your phone through the DJI Fly app, or via USB-C directly to your PC or Mac. In controllerless mode, the DJI NEO had this button on top which you press to toggle between the different quick-shot modes, such as droney or circle. If you needed to change the parameters of those shots, such as the distance or the height, you needed to get your phone out, open the DJI Fly app, connect it to the drone, and then set it from there, which kind of took the spontaneity out of just whipping it out and shoving it up.
Stop it!
The Neo 2, on the other hand, has this little screen on it that shows the mode you've selected and is controlled by these buttons on the bottom of the drone. You can cycle through all of the modes, and then to change the parameters of each shot, you just long press on the corresponding button to change that parameter. Once you've selected the mode and the parameters you want, you press on this button here, which has got a little orange stripe on it, and it'll take off from your hand, take the shot, and return to you after it's completed it. So there's no need to get your phone out at all. In fact, the only time you need to do that is if you find yourself constantly scrolling past all the modes that you don't use on the drone. You can remove them so that they're just purely accessible from the app. You can also enable follow mode directly from both drones, but the Neo 2 has a couple of special tricks up its sleeve, which I'll come on to later in the video. If you're flying with the DJI Fly app open on your phone, just as with the original Neo, you can access various settings, such as advanced camera settings, audio recording, which is still a bit poo, by the way.
I'm not particularly impressed with it, but it might work for a bit of scratch audio and then sync up some separately recorded audio in post.
You'll get a live view of the video, and with the Neo 2 in follow mode, you can position the drone at any angle that you want it to shoot from. With both drones, you can also use the app to manually control the drone with these virtual joysticks. This isn't great for taking classic cinematic drone shots, but it helps you if you're wanting to get the drone into a specific position for a specific shot. The manual says that using your phone as the controller is limited to a range of about 500 meters. But this is in lab conditions at DJI, and in reality it's probably significantly less than that depending on what phone you have, for one thing. I mean, I'm talking about 100 to 150 meters absolute maximum. The DJI NEO doesn't have any obstacle avoidance except for ground detection, so it's quite easy to crash, whereas the Neo 2 has 360-degree obstacle avoidance using these sensors here and LiDAR. This means it can fly backwards in follow mode, so take a shot of you from the front and then does a great job of avoiding objects, as you can see here. Very occasionally, it goes a little bit wild, like a cat that's seen a cucumber, but generally recovers fine. The DJI NEO 2 does give you active track, where you can choose the type of tracking that you want it to do. So either people or cycling or skiing. As with any DJI drone, like the Mini 5 Pro or Mini 4 Pro, be very careful of twiggy branches and cables though, especially if the drone's tracking you at high speed. The avoidance is good, but it can't work miracles. Just as with the DJI NEO, you can control the DJI NEO 2 using the RCN3 or the RC2 with the built-in screen. Compared to drones like the Mini 4 or Mini 5 Pro, your options are limited though. You don't have hyperlapses or waypoints or panoramic photos, for example. And as with other mini drones, you can select the height, the distance and the angle you want them to track you from. The one thing that is missing, unfortunately, is one of my favourite modes, Active Track Auto. This is where the drone dynamically changes its shot as it tracks you. Whilst I wouldn't expect it to be on the NEO because of the lack of obstacle avoidance, DJI left it off the NEO 2, which I think is a bit of a miss from them. Fingers crossed it might come up in a future update though. The functions on the RCN3 and the RC2 are basically the same for each, so you get a good deal of extra range by using a controller and can fly the NEO or the NEO 2 just as if you were flying a normal mini drone. That said, it doesn't matter what the range is, as long as you can fly the drone far enough to still be able to see it, as flying beyond visual line of sight is illegal in most countries. The main point of range specifications is not how far away you can fly the drone, but how strong the signal is. That said, whilst using these controllers gives you a greater range and more reliable signal than using your phone, in tests with the Neo 2, I found that even with my knackered eyes, I could maintain visual line of it just short of 500 meters. Whereas with something like the Air 3 on a clear day, and I don't like to do it, but I can just about manage a kilometer, so double that. Both the Neo and the Neo 2 are compatible with the Goggles 3, the Motion Controller 3, and the DJI Remote 3, and are massive fun to fly in this mode. Even though they lack the power of your typical FPV or even the Avata 2, it's just really nice to have this mode as an introduction to this type of flying. But just bear in mind that due to their weight and their power, they aren't as capable as their bigger brothers, and you are slightly more limited as to what you can do. With the limited amount of time I've had to use it in this mode and the windy conditions I've flown in, it's still impressive though. Now there will be some dyed-in-the-wool FPV pilots out there that will rag on this drone like crazy, but if you've never flown FPV before, it is still bloody good fun and a great safe way to get a taste for this style of flying, and I really like it. Talking of liking stuff, please don't forget to hit the like button down below if you're finding this video interesting or useful. And if you're not already one of the awesome people that subscribes to the channel, then please consider doing that as well. It really does help out. Anyway, back onto the remote. If you are using a remote controller with the DJI NEO 2, you will need to attach the digital transceiver for it to work. This plugs into the USB-C port at the back, and then for extra security, there are these 4 screws that you use as well. Now, a couple of tips on this. Firstly, be very careful using the screwdriver that DJI send with the drone. It is garbage, and you could end up stripping your screws. I would recommend getting yourself one of these, a Phillips 000 screwdriver. This can be used if you need to replace your propellers or for the digital transceiver. There's an affiliate link in the description below for this one. And before I get yet another comment about it, yes, it definitely is a Phillips 000 that you need. The second tip is don't over tighten the screws with the transceiver. The USB-C holds onto it pretty well on its own, and I think the screws are just there for extra security. Oh, and the DJI NEO 2 manual says to tighten them after every 60 flights. But again, don't over tighten them, otherwise you might not be able to remove the transceiver. Why would you want to remove the transceiver? Well, these little aerials here don't come off, so if you do crash and they break off, you might want to replace this, or if you're a bit rough with it, putting it in and out of your bag. By the way, it's only 19 quid for a replacement, so don't worry unduly about it. That said, my friend Sean over at Geeksvana has come up with a 3D printed protector for them. So if any of you out there are 3D printing geeks and you want the plans for it, I'll leave the link in the description. The DJI manual says that the flight time of the NEO 2 without the digital transceiver is about 17 minutes, but this does very much depend on the conditions, and DJI always test their flight times in a lab with no wind. I wanted to know how much difference it made with the 9-gram digital transceiver on and off the drone. So I set up this not particularly scientific experiment, hovering the drone in my back garden on a slightly breezy day. I tried to emulate the same conditions with each flight, so a full battery, me bothering the obstacle avoidance by taking photos too close, and connecting to the phone app. The flight time with the transceiver reduced by about 7% compared to not using it, and while the flight time does seem far off DJI's stated time, it was on a par with the original NEO, which is to be expected. Even though the NEO 2 has a higher battery capacity, it's also doing a lot more stuff. It's powering this little screen, the LiDAR, the obstacle avoidance, and gesture control. I've been doing a lot of swiping recently. No, not in a dating app. I almost did, but they rejected my application because they didn't believe the picture I submitted was me for some reason. No, when I first got the DJI NEO 2, Of course, I wanted to get out and test it, and what better way to do that than to use it for one of my channel member vlogs. Links are down below, by the way, if you want to become a channel member. I'd obviously read the manual and watched the tutorial videos before even receiving the drone, for once, and was intrigued by gesture control mode. I thought this was probably, at best, a bit of a gimmick. So what is gesture control? Well, in Spotlight or Follow mode, you can place the drone exactly where you want it without having to use your phone or your controller. Simply hold up your hand with the palm facing the drone for 2 seconds, wait for the little blue light to come on, and then move your hand where you want the drone to move. Swipe it left to go left, right to go right, up to go up, and if you can't work out what you need to do to make it go down from there, then I'm sorry, drones probably aren't for you. If you want to make the drone go further away, hold both hands up and move them away from each other. It only has to be one movement. You don't have to stretch your arms all the way out. And then when you want it to stop, just bring your hands down. And then if you want the drone to come closer, start with your hands apart and bring them together until it gets to the right distance, and then bring your hands down again. You can actually whip the Neo 2 round quite fast, and you really start to feel a bit like Obi-Wan Kenobi or something.
Hello there.
Hello there. Hello there. And then fist your drone to stop it paying attention to your hands. I could have phrased that better, I think. This will stop the drone inadvertently following your hands when you don't want it to. If you're with someone and they want to take control, give it hold your fist up, and then with the person stood close to you, get them to hold their palm up and they can take control. Like these lovely people did when I met them when I was out on my walk. In fact, this guy did it better than I did, and he'd never flown a drone before, which just goes to show how intuitive it is. Or how incompetent I am. And then one of the coolest things is, if you hold your hand out palm up, the Neo 2 will return to you and land in your palm. Although do be a little bit careful about this if it's a windy day. The other thing is that DJI's manual says that you shouldn't really wear gloves or mittens when you're controlling the drone using gesture control. I tried it. It works fine. That's a bit of a bonus. The DJI NEO 2 is a very good selfie drone and also a great introduction to other drone modes as well. The addition of obstacle avoidance and gesture control makes this a definite upgrade to the original NEO. And whilst the camera is only an iterative update and the flight time could be better, the whole package is well worth it if you don't mind spending some extra pennies. And compared to other drones, it's still excellent value. There is plenty more that this can do. For example, even though it doesn't support it natively, you can do hyperlapses with it, just like you can with the DJI NEO, which is in this video here. And YouTube's little goblins think you might want to watch this as well. Bye!
Can't wait till I'm back up on my feet again.